So I started my service story in April of 2003. I joined the Army, became a 82nd paratrooper infantryman, served 3 tours overseas, and in 2009 I departed active duty and did 2 years in active reserve until April 11th when I got my full discharge papers. During my second deployment, 2005, we lost our medic. Their Humvee drove over a double-stacked anti-tank mine, and it blew up the driver's side back seat, which he was seated over. We were told at the time of the explosion that he was doing fine. They were going to fly him out to our main FOB in Afghanistan and get him checked out. By the end of the day, we returned to our small forward operating base and got to see his Humvee in the motor pool after checking our trucks, making sure they were going to be ready for tomorrow. His truck was on a trailer, and to see the damage of that Humvee and to think that our medic lived through it amazed us. Before we could make it to evening chow, we were all called to the chaplain's office. It was reported to us that our medic had died from internal bleeding from the concussion. Looking back on that, I think it would have been easier to handle his death had he been announced dead right after rolling over that mine than having the thought that he lived through it and then being told that he didn't. Returning home, in May of 2009, I met my wife, Kaylee, and we were married the next year in 2010. In 2011, she got recruited to work at Cabela's in Sidney, Nebraska, and that's brought us to Nebraska. And while in Sidney, in 2012, I realized I had a problem. Wasn't myself. I had been through 7 different jobs. I lasted 6 to 10 months at each one of them and could not coexist with the civilian population in a workplace environment. In the military, there are very small details that every man and woman must follow, or you lose your buddy to your left or your right. The civilian population does not know the teamwork that takes and the trust that it takes to have in your team in any situation, and the anxiety of going to work and being looked at like I was trying to take the jobs of other people when I was only told to help had me dry heaving for hours before heading to work. So my wife told me, "You're done. Whatever it takes for us to get by, my job will cover." Went to the VA in Sydney and tried my best to find help in whatever therapy I needed. Went through 2 or 3 therapists before finding out that it wasn't really a big deal to the VA or the government to take care of our mental health. If we didn't have physical disabilities, we were fine. We moved to Kimball in 2015, and I was able to argue my way with the VA to find me a therapist that was going to give me tools and make me work at being able to coexist with the civilian population. I went through 12 weeks of outpatient work that covered most of my military PTSD. I was doing well, but I could not go anywhere without a companion. 9 out of 10 times it was my wife. By 2019, I've lost or had not got worked through other trauma in my life. I had a flashback, I blacked out. When I came to, it was after a handgun had fired off in my dining room. I immediately cleared the weapon, put it away, found my wife unable to stand up, speak, crying. She said I was speaking Arabic, screaming, yelling. Found her 9mm handgun and was on the way to kill myself. Luckily, I had a negligent discharge, fired it through the floor of the dining room, and it snapped me out of it. My wife was on the phone with 911. She could not speak to anything that was going on. So everybody was sent to our house. The first people to show up were the police department. They came in guns blazing, arrested me for domestic violence, took me to jail. My wife fought for weeks to get them to take me somewhere for inpatient therapy. Finally got released to Hot Springs Domiciliary in South Dakota, where I spent 13 weeks inpatient, and found out that I had childhood trauma that was compacted by my military trauma. And I spent those 13 weeks working through my childhood trauma. I was born in 1983 in Burlington, Colorado. By the age of 3, my mother had divorced my biological father and had just had my sister. I was not allowed to meet my father because he couldn't pay a full month's child support, so my mother would not let me see him or him see me. And anytime he did, she found a way to keep me from him. After therapy, I chose to seek out my father's side of family and found out that my father wanted to see me so bad that he went to jail multiple times trying to see me. My mother told me that he was a druggie, an alcoholic, and didn't want anything to do with me. That's what I knew for 37 years. When I got to meet my family again, I met my Aunt Tara and my Uncle Johnny for what felt like the first time in my life. We drove the 4 hours to see them, and they told me a great story about my father, how much he loved me, how great of a father he was to my 2 half-brothers. After that first meeting, my wife and I drove home and decided it was going to change my name from what was taken from me in middle school by my stepfather at the time and my mother, back to my name that was on my birth certificate, Anthony Tyrone Garcia. After we got that completed, we had a celebration back in Burlington with my aunt and uncle and many other family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, to celebrate me finding myself again, coming back to the family that really loved me. They told me I never, ever left their minds, their hearts. I also found out that my father wanted to name me Tyrone Garcia. So after that day, and probably a few months of really digging deep, I decided I was going to go by Tyrone, even though my mom would not allow him to give me my first name that way, and not legally change it. We had gone through so much trying to change my name back to Garcia through the military, just so I could get all my paperwork back. So I go by Tyrone now because my father, after we're getting home after that celebration and meeting one of my half-brothers, he had kept in contact with me over Messenger. And asked me if I was religious. And I said, yes, not going to church every Sunday, Bible study every Wednesday, all the things, but I know he's up there. So he sent me my father's Bible and his wallet. In my dad's wallet, was my baby picture that he had carried his whole life. In his Bible, there were 4 or 5 pieces of notebook paper. And on those pieces of paper, I found notes to both of my half-brothers and his wife. Every day, he would wake up before they had to go to school. He would write them notes, reminding them to do well on their math test, to make sure they got home on a Friday afternoon, got homework and chores done, so they could enjoy Friday Night SmackDown. I don't know how I ever would have reacted to meeting him, and I wish I could have, but he died in a car accident when I was 17 years old. So I will not get to meet him. But I have all of the stories from my family that I get to hear all the time. And there are a few brothers and sisters that he has that I will meet along the way and know I get to hear more and more. After returning from therapy, my wife decided we needed to move, find some land so we could own horses. She'd grown up riding horses her whole life. On the ranch, gathering cows, riding out in the middle of nowhere, spending the day, coming home. She said, "You need a horse." So we moved south of Morrill, got us just under 4 acres. We found horses. In February of 22, we bought Old Red. My horse, who when we picked up was tied to a 4x4 in a shelter, probably 10 by 10, with a halter and a bridle on him. He looked starved. There was no food in his shelter. And when we got up close to him, we could see that his halter was growing into his face. We finally were able to get the bridle and halter off of him. The owner of him at that time said, "Oh, that's his. You can take that with you." And my wife helped it out and told him, "These die here." Because Old Red was going to come to our house and he was going to live his best life. His trauma and my trauma bonded us like nothing I knew I could bond to. That horse gives me peace, love, and is my best friend every day. I can walk out to him whenever I need him. I see him twice a day to feed him. And he knows exactly how I feel. Whether he needs to come up and let me love him all over, brush him, scratch him, him give me a hug, or if he just needs to come over, give me a nudge, take off, eat some more hay. That therapy from that horse has got me through days and days and weeks and years without having to take extra medication, without having to see doctors over and over. And one day, my wife, now working at OTCF, got called by somebody who wanted to donate and help veterans in our community. She said, I will find something you can give to, some organization. So she called the VSO, Matt Myers, and he said, you know, I can't believe I didn't think about calling you guys. I've been the president of Buck Board for a few years, and I'm trying to get veteran therapy going here. Kaylee said, well, we'll help. And I have a feeling we might have some help from a donor in the community. So, for 6 months, we've been finding horses for Buckboard to own to help with the children's therapy and prepare for veterans therapy. By this time next year, we hope to have at least 3 veterans go through our therapy sessions and be able to help the next set of veterans go through the following year. Hopefully we can do those in years, we don't know. Every veteran has different needs. Will take longer or shorter than the next veteran to get through what we plan our structure to be. But I guarantee you that we will not let this fail. Because there are too many veterans that I know, that I served with, that aren't here today, that with a little bit of extra help, with a horse, could still be here. Thank you.